What do you think our lives would be like if everyone said and did exactly what they meant? Imagine, no contradictions, no distractions, just, nothing like that. Communication that's clear and direct, purposeful and meaningful avoids confusion, frustration, and irritation. Developing this self-control, though, requires that we pay attention and cultivate awareness. And you thought we were just going to be training animals here today. All right, let's have a volunteer. Ann, can you come up? I'll use you for my volunteer here. All right, now, this scenario could happen at any bar in USA. I've seen it every place I've ever been. And it goes something like this. Now, you don't need to say or do anything. We'll get your impression afterwards. Hit. Stop it. Whack. Don't. Yank. Quit it. Oh, I'm getting hungry. I wish it was dinner. Oh, there's Sally. Stop it. You quit it. Hi, Sally. How is the show, Sally? Oh, there goes my cell phone. Hit. Whack. So Ann, did you learn anything from all that?
I learned that if I stayed here much longer, I was going to die.
Yes. Maybe just that you don't want to be around me much.
Right. And that, it was like you weren't talking to me half the time, so you lost my attention. I wandered off.
Yeah. What's the use? Thank you. Most of the time, I can't even tell what people are trying to teach their horses when I'm watching them. Now let's look at how to create communication and rapport. My program has 3 main parts. We use shaping, clickerless training, and positive reinforcement. Shaping is the overall process, the basic foundation. And your tools are the click, which is an indicator that a desirable behavior has occurred, and positive reinforcement, which energizes your methods. I was impressed with the effectiveness of clicker training when it came out years ago, but found that it had some definite disadvantages as far as I was concerned. I didn't want to carry anything around in my hands. It wasn't conducive to riding, and then there always seemed to be a time lapse between the click and the behavior, from what I could tell. So instead, I substituted sounds, words, and whistles for my click. An example of this would be yes, right, or no, It's not the word so much as the duration and the inflection. It's up to encourage what I want, and then downward to discourage what I don't want. You have to be careful. The click promises food, so you don't want to repeatedly accidentally click for a behavior by saying good, for instance, because it weakens the link and then it lessens the learner's motivation. And before beginning this training, you need to pair your click with a primary reinforcer, food usually, so the animal learns to work for your click. So shaping is a way for me to introduce a behavior in a gentle and subtle manner. Shaping is just getting little behaviors and growing them and then connecting them. In order to shape a behavior, I have 2 choices. I can create it and or capture it. Now think about this. That gives me double the opportunities to train, because not only am I cueing Lucas for things I'm expecting and wanting, I'm also always watching and looking for things that I might want to use. This is a very powerful tool. The creating and capturing resembles a steep staircase. The flat steps are the little trials and attempts, and then as the horse catches on to the game, the learning spikes sharply. Let's use Lucas's first trick, the smile, as our example here. It's fun, easy, and can be refined as desired. In general, teaching the smile goes as follows. A light touch to the muzzle, and preferably in the center of the upper lip. And I'll specify locations that I like to use because consistency is very important, especially if you plan on adding on more tricks. I also recommend that you stand at an angle to the horse's left shoulder. This is a comfortable and familiar spot. He expects you to be there. Except for Lucas, I never stand directly in front of a horse. You want to keep your training fun and safe. Now let's pause here and take a little test. That always wakes everybody up. I want you to take your finger and using your ordinary cueing pressure, what you typically use, say, to get your horse to move over, use your usual cue pressure on your arm. Okay, feel that? Okay, now let's try this. Now, same finger, and this time with a touch as light and soft and barely there as a feather. Touch your own arm. Feel the difference? This is what my horses feel. Who cares about pressure? I've been asked. The horse does what I tell it and we get her done. Well, this demanding intensity has several negative consequences. The directives need to escalate as the learner becomes numb. there is resentment. The resentment builds up, and we become pushy, loud, harsh tormentors. That's not how we want to think of ourselves, or the image that we want to convey to our students and the public. You see now that the horses can also train us to be patient, polite, and use finesse. One of the goals here with my training is to do less in order to achieve more. What does that mean? In Lucas's case, it meant that the quieter and more considerate and attuned I became with him, the more eager and responsive he became, and the more he wanted to do for me. This just makes good training sense as far as I'm concerned. Why start with the heavy cue? We'll just have to lighten it later. So everyone's like, oh, that's just tricks. This is much more than trick training. And this relationship can extend into other areas as well. You know, our groundwork, procedures that need to be done, writing, even our lives. Building relationships based on caring and respect develops closeness and trust. Now, it's been suggested that this type of training is best suited for sensitive breeds, thoroughbreds like Lucas, for example. My horse wouldn't feel a Mack truck. And you expect him to feel a feather on his arm? Well, people vary in their responses and capabilities, don't they? Why would we expect horses to also demonstrate this as well? I'll give another example. What kind of riding do you do in?
Trail riding.
Trail riding, okay. So what if I asked you to go out and ride a Grand Prix dressage test or go on a 50-mile trail ride? How do you think that would go?
It would be interesting.
Yes. Well, probably not so well at first. Yeah. So it wouldn't go out as well at first, yet we expect our horses to just go along unquestioningly with any program that we choose and do whatever we say. What it boils down to is helping our students learn using fun, progressive lessons that motivate them. So we've got our feather-light touch on the horse's muzzle, and what's next? Any ideas?
Capture.
So we wait. We're going to wait because this is when the learning takes place. And this is when the horse is trying to figure out what we want. Waiting is as important as anything else that we do. You know, it's common to want things fast and easy, but to have a solid partnership and performance takes time and empathy. I do promise that if we've done our basics and prepared our horse properly, we're not going to have to wait long. Usually within a minute or so, I'm going to notice something that I can click for. Now be careful. This is where most trainers get stuck. They're going to continue to reward for that same initial minimal effort, and the horse actually becomes untrained. The horse expects and receives the same steady treat and does less and less. I'll show you how to keep that from happening. I want to let you in on a few other things as well. Remember the hot-cold game we played as kids? As you recall, it went like this. We wanted one of our playmates to do something, whether it was go turn on a light switch or pick up a toy. And how did we do that? We let them know when they were getting closer or farther from the target behavior by saying hotter, warmer, or colder. What does this have to do with animal training? With conventional clicker training, I noticed that there always seemed to be a lapse, like I mentioned, between the click and the behavior. But with the click, it either happens or it doesn't. It's an all or nothing event. I incorporated intermediary markers to lead the subject to the target behavior